For me, I'll start with the most difficult in retirement. I retired twice in my career. Once as an athlete when I was 20, and then once as a coach when I was 32. And the first one, I really struggled to know who I was, and that was really extended beyond just what I did for a career, but that was a big part of it. It went into, who did I hang out with? Did I still hang out with my old athlete friends? But when I hung out with them, I felt like I was a bit of a third wheel. I wasn't in on any of the jokes. I wasn't able to share the stories that they were sharing from the sporting field or from the trips or the tours they'd been on. And so then I'd go and hang out with, maybe the wrong crowd, and you'd get a bit of a buzz because, you still had a bit of a status there, I guess, from when you were playing as an athlete. But in your heart, you kind of knew that perhaps you shouldn't be hanging out with those guys, or you should be going and doing something a little bit more productive. So that was really the biggest challenge for me when I first left as an athlete, was who was I as a person if I wasn't an athlete, and particularly who did I hang around? Like, did I still hang around the athletes, or did I go and find my new friends, or did I go and create new friends altogether? And then that led to a whole range of other things where I'd probably, to be honest, would basically hang out with anyone that would really, just give me the attention that I thought I'd lost through being an athlete. So that led to, hanging out with the wrong crew, probably getting up to stuff that I shouldn't have got up to. And what happened was then I just got more and more confused around who I was and what I was doing, and then started to feel, shameful or guiltful around the things that I'm doing, comparing it back to who I had been when I was an athlete, and I guess the fantasy of the really kind of good all-round person I'd been when I was an athlete. When I retired as a coach, the most difficult thing was working out what else I was good at. And I made, I guess, a step into teaching straight away, thinking that would be the closest thing to coaching. And pretty quickly, in about 6 months, I realised that the classroom wasn't the place for me. And that was a real shock because, I'd left coaching thinking I was going to go out and experience the world and see what else there was to offer. And within 6 months, I was back really scratching my head and wondering what else I had to give if it wasn't coaching and it wasn't teaching. And that confused me, because then I started to think, well, maybe I should go back to coaching. Maybe that's where I should be long term. But then I felt like I was giving up on myself and not really investigating what the other options were. In terms of the things that have worked for me, most of all, it's around investing in myself, educating myself in other areas. I guess having the courage to go and do things like personal development courses, do things like read widely on topics that I probably would never have picked up when I was an athlete or a coach. Things like personal values, personal development, relationships even. Financial literacy has been a big one. And all of those things have given me the confidence that I've got skills and I've got things that I can bring to new challenges, which I've brought into the business we're in now. And, ultimately, I think as athletes, sometimes we forget how confident we were when we knew what we were doing as an athlete. And all it really takes is for us to take some time in getting to know a new skill, take some time to educating yourself, and you'll find that confidence returns almost immediately, and you've got that resilience as an athlete to get pushing on and get the success that you want in your next pursuit. When I was an athlete, I got ruled out pretty young at 20 after 6 knee operations, so I didn't have a whole lot of time in my career to plan for transition, but what I do wish I'd done is actually take the time to investigate my options myself. I was pretty all right at school, had marks that I had quite a few options, But what I did was I was so focused on my sport that all I did was kind of tick the box. And my old man worked in careers, still does, and I took his advice around doing a general broad-based commerce and law degree. And I hadn't really thought about what it meant. I hadn't looked at what subjects there were in the courses. I'd never spent a day in the office. I'd never spent a day in a law firm or spoken to a lawyer. And that was fine while I still had sport, because it kind of ticked along while I was doing what I loved with sport. But the moment I lost sport and all I had to focus on was my studies and my career, I realized really quickly that the things that I was doing there had no real interest to me, and I hadn't taken the time to investigate those before I'd signed up for them. So, I made the same mistake when I transitioned from coaching, where I'd done 3 degrees and I'd done them while I coached, and they were in education predominantly, and I just assumed that education was like coaching because it was helping and teaching people, and I'd never gone and spent time in the classroom. And when my coaching career did finish at 32, when I chose for it to finish, I threw myself into teaching. I grabbed hold of it with both hands. I was like, yep, this is what I'm doing. I'm ready. I've done my qualifications and that'll sort me out, and I'm off on my next adventure. But I'd never spent, any serious time in a classroom, and that was a regret that I'd had, because had I spent that time in the classroom and felt what it was like to be a teacher and understood how difficult it is in the modern day to be a teacher, and the structures you got around the time and the parents and all of that and the knowledge you need, I probably wouldn't have chosen that career. So both times I'd say that the regret I had around preparing for transition was not doing the work and researching and investigating it myself, either taking other people's advice or just thinking that a qualification itself would be enough to give me an idea of what the actual job was going to be like without experiencing it or going and finding out for myself. For me, you've heard previously that I didn't do a lot of research initially, so when it came to really investigating what was right for me and why I'm in the work I'm in now, it was a really big process of looking inwards. I did some work with a guy called Dr. John DeMartini, who's part of our courses now that we run at the Final Whistle. And I did a lot of work around values and the idea of what really was important to me, and not just what was important to my family or my friends or whatever else, but what really mattered to me. And it came down, I guess, to my personal values, and they've been shaped by all of my experiences during my life. So, that taught me that although I loved helping and teaching people, I really wanted to help teach people around my own age who had experienced similar challenges to me, which was why I realised that going and teaching, 12 and 13-year-old kids wasn't the right thing for me. I wanted to work with people around my own age in a high-performance environment, and by reflecting and looking back and taking the time, I learnt that. What it also meant was I got to use my own experiences. So for a lot of us, identifying career or study options will actually come from experiences we've had previously, whether that's a challenge we've had or something that we feel might be missing in our life. So it may be that, growing up, you're always really fascinated by money but never had any money. And so that's always been an area of interest to you. Sometimes those things can be a good predictor of what career or study options you might have an interest in. And I think taking the time to look at that, then actually look at what opportunities there were out there. So for me, it wasn't just identifying that I wanted to do that, but it was, how can I do that? Do I do that inside an organization? Do I do that as a business? Do I do that on my own? Do I do it with other people? So there's a whole range of next questions there. And the self-awareness stuff, and particularly some of the behavioural profiling stuff I did there, which got me to think about, what were my strengths, that I like working with people or in small groups with detail or with big picture stuff, kind of helped me shape those ideas. So the two biggest things for me was really looking inward at my values and what was most important to me, and then getting an understanding of who I was, what my behavioural strengths were, and how they applied to the kind of work environments that I'd be interested in, which is why I ended up choosing to be my own boss, I guess, and run this business, The Final Whistle. I think, for a lot of athletes, we take for granted the fact that we love what we're doing with sport, and we almost don't remember why we love doing it. We just kind of got into sport when we were younger, and our friends were around there to start, and then as we grew up, we really enjoyed the challenge of sport and what it did for us in terms of things like, physically it put us in great shape. We got to travel. We had really resourceful challenges in our lives. And without knowing it, it kind of met everything we were looking for. And I think that's something that it's easy to take for granted. And I think, when we look for that next career, taking the time to find something that meets all of those needs, that really makes us feel the same way that we did when we were playing sport, is hugely important. For most of us, our non-sporting career is going to be 5 times longer than our sporting career ever was. So, a sporting career might last 10, 12 years, a little bit longer for some, whereas these days, most of us are going to be working into our late 60s, early 70s. So we're looking at, 50 years of work, and we're going to be putting 40, 50, 60 hours of our week into that work. So for, a lot of us, work's just an income, and when we're younger, that's important. But as we get older, work becomes a big part of our identity. It becomes, where we actually get to express ourselves, where we get the opportunity for growth, where we get the opportunity to feel good about ourselves, that we're actually achieving something and that we're good at something. And, that is a big, big part of your happiness and your fulfillment in life. And I think when we don't do that, what happens is we go and, if our work is not satisfying and it's making us upset and it's making us angry, then we carry all those things into the other parts of our lives. So, if we go home angry at the end of the day, I've just started a young family, so I've got my second baby due any day actually. I want to make sure that when I go home, I'm feeling good about myself and I'm able to really be there for them, and I'm able to be there for my wife and my partner. So it's for yourself, you've got to find that thing that you love so that you're excited about going to work, you're excited about working that 40 or 50 hours a week for the next 50 years, as silly as it might sound. But more so, you've got to do it so that when you go home and for the people that you love, you're ready to give to them, you're ready to give to yourself and enjoy life, rather than just ticking the box and looking forward to 2 days a week rest for 5 days a week doing something that you don't enjoy. So currently I'm the managing director of a company called The Final Whistle, and I founded this with a couple of other guys to focus on assisting athletes during their careers in preparing for life after sport. And we manage them with career education specifically, but also some personal development stuff, and really help them create a plan around their plan B, so that they can focus on their plan A during their sporting career. And then during transition, we help them work out and articulate what it was that they made them so great during their sporting career, and how they can apply that to the right jobs, the right careers, and how they can articulate that to make sure they capitalize on the opportunities available to them. So for me, most of my day involves a whole variety of tasks, and that's one thing that I think small business offers for athletes who perhaps don't like doing the same routine thing every day, is you end up largely doing, a bit of marketing, a bit of business development, a bit of finance. You've got the drudge work of maybe just doing data entry of research, but you've got a whole spectrum of activities in your day, and quite often they involve interacting with other people. So that's a big thing I enjoy about running my own business. And then the second thing here for the work we're in is I really enjoy helping other people. So, I've been a coach most of my life, either on the sporting field or now in careers. And, for me, the industry that I'm in would really suit athletes who are looking to give back, perhaps, are looking to help their other athletes, or it could be helping other parts of the community through careers or those sorts of things. But it's the ability to sit down with someone, try to find out what their problem is, talk to them in their language, and get a result that they're happy with. And so I think if any athletes out there, that appealed to them, they had that idea in their life that they'd like to give back and help others, then work like mine in career coaching and personal development coaching in sport provides a really good link between the things we loved about sport with the ability to create our own business and also help people get on with their lives and be successful again.